Gone, gone, sold and gone to the rice swamp dank and lone, where the slave ship ceaseless swings, where the noisome insect stings, where the fever demon strews poison with the falling dews, where the sickly sunbeams glare through the hot and misty air. Gone, gone, sold and gone to the rice swamp dank and lone, from Virginia's hills and waters. Woe is me, my stolen daughters. Gone, gone, sold and gone to the rice swamp dank and lone. There no mother's eye is near them, there no mother's ear can hear them. Never when the torturing lash seams them back with many a gash, shall a mother's kindness bless them, or a mother's arm caress them. Gone, gone, sold and gone to the rice swamp dank and lone, from Virginia's hills and waters. Woe is me, my stolen daughters.
The singers got started shortly after the History Project did. The History Project began in 2006 to take part in the commemoration of the Amistad slave ship. It involved a group of people who already had some singing interests. Some people were already singing in choirs and church groups, and others involved in the History Project who were interested in singing the abolitionist and anti-slavery songs of this period. And over the past several years, we've done a couple of dozen performances. The historical researcher for the group, Rebecca Edwards, published a book last year, 36 Anti-Slavery Songs, which we use to take the material from when we do our concert performances. The songs reflect the strong sentiment of those who were opposed to slavery in the United States at that time. It brought together an array of interests, both political and religious, secular interests, as well as the influence coming from freedmen in the North.
I am an abolitionist, I glory in the name, though now by slavery's minions hissed and covered o'er with shame.
It is a spell of light and power, the watchword of the free, who spurns it in the trial hour, a craven soul is he.
I am an abolitionist, then urge me not to pause, for joyfully I do enlist in freedom's sacred cause.
A nobler strife the world ne'er saw, than slave to disenthrall. I am a soldier for the war, whatever may befall.
We may think of people who were in slavery having escaped from the South, and that's certainly true, but the first people who escaped from slavery around here were escaping from slavery here in New York and New Jersey. We did a little research into music that was sung at anti-slavery conventions and rallies and meetings before the Civil War, and we found a really rich array of music. And then over the years that followed, we decided that we would like to sing more and more of that music, and we ended up getting some historic clothing from 1860 to sing these pieces of music. They range from sort of patriotic songs to an array of hymns, and they even borrowed from minstrel music and other sources. So they used an array of musical styles, and they used these to bring the abolitionist music to the public. They wanted to convey the experience of slavery, so many of these songs talk about the experience of mothers who are separated from their children, or the hardships that are endured by people in slavery. And many of them are very open critiques of America, including parodies of My Country 'Tis of Thee and other songs like that that convey this is a great country and this is a place of freedom, but we still have work to do.
My country 'tis of thee, stronghold of slavery, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, where man's rights deride, from every mountainside thy deed shall ring. My native country, thee, where all men are born free, if white their skin. I love thy hills and dales, thy mounts and pleasant vales, but hate thy negro sails as foul as sin. Let wailing swell the breeze, and ring from all the trees the black man's wrong. Let every tongue awake, let bond and free partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong.
My name is Ken Moody, and I'm a member of the Mid-Hudson Anti-Slavery History Project group. The purpose of the group is very simple in one way. It's to do research about slavery and anti-slavery activities in the Mid-Hudson Valley. John Bolding, he was a slave, a runaway slave from the Carolinas who made his way to Poughkeepsie and worked in a tailor shop and eventually had his own shop. And one day a woman from the Carolinas was visiting in Poughkeepsie and recognized him. They got a U.S. Marshal who arrested him and took him to New York City to take him back to where they say he belonged. The people in Poughkeepsie liked him so much and were so incensed by this action that they had a public fund drive, and people in Poughkeepsie donated money. There was even a couple of people in Albany that donated some money and sent it down. And they raised, I think, a little over $1,100, or I think it's like, I'm not sure of the figure. But they raised the amount of money that was needed to buy him back. So this Poughkeepsie bought him back and put him back in business.
John Brown died on the scaffold for the slave. Dark was the hour when we dug his hallowed grave. Now God avenges the life he gladly gave. Freedom reigns today. Glory, masters are we. Honor to him who has made the bondman free. Loved evermore shall our noble ruler be. Freedom reigns today. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Freedom reigns today. John Brown's soul through the world is marching on. Hail to the hour when oppression shall be gone. All men will sing in the better ages gone. Freedom reigns today. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Freedom reigns today.
I am president of the Black History Society of the Dutchess County Historical Group. And we are interested in anything within our county that we can promulgate Black history and let people know about it. This cemetery really has a very, very long history. It started back in 1700s with Derrick Storm, who bought property in this area, and the cemetery is where he buried and other members of the Storm family their slaves. Brian McAdoo of Vassar College did a dig here, and he also probed this land, and he found that about 80 to 100 graves were in this section alone. We've counted 120 or so stones, but the stones could be anything. The Catherine Street Center's people installed this stone over here to my right. And the stone says the Storm Slave Cemetery. Yes, it is. But we know about Elizabeth Johnson because here's her tombstone. She paid for this herself. 1848 is when she died. And in her will of 1843, she said, I want to be buried and pay for my tombstone in this cemetery. So this cemetery not only holds slaves, but it holds free people also.
Oh, the car emancipation rides majestic through our nation, bearing on its frame the story, liberty, our nation's glory. Roll it along, roll it along, roll it along, through the nation, freedom's car, emancipation. Roll it along, roll it along, roll it along, through the nation, freedom's car, emancipation. Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way, every station clear the track, emancipation. Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way, every station clear the track, emancipation.
Railroads to emancipation cannot rest on clay foundation, and the road that Poker Rexus leads to slavery and Texas.
Pull up the rails, pull up the rails, pull up the rails, emancipation cannot rest on such foundation. Pull up the rails, pull up the rails, pull up the rails, emancipation cannot rest on such foundation.
With old Abe to go before us and the flag of freedom o'er us, chorus, we will shout the sounding chorus. We're for freedom and reform.
With old Abe, with old Abe, with old Abe to go before us. We're for freedom and reform. With old Abe, with old Abe, with old Abe to go before us. We're for freedom and reform. See the people run to meet us, and the deepest thousands greet us. All take seats with exultation in the car emancipation. Huzzah, huzzah! Huzzah, huzzah! Huzzah, huzzah! Emancipation soon will bless a happy nation. Huzzah, huzzah! Huzzah, huzzah! Huzzah, huzzah! Emancipation soon will bless a happy nation. Huzzah!
Freedom seekers needed to get from one point to another in their journey to freedom. And that is referred to as the Underground Railroad. Normally, the tradition would be that you would travel at night, or you would go from one designated place, and then you would be transported to another. And the Quaker network would be from one Quaker community to another. And this whole region of New York State has multiple Quaker communities. The Quakers did not start the movement, but they were very much involved with it because of their philosophy of equality. And it's a fascinating part of our American history. But because it's all under the radar, it wasn't written down, it's often overlooked. And part of our research is looking at the traditions of the Underground Railroad, of freedom seekers, of free black communities, of communities that were actually integrated right from the beginning. The Nine Partners Meeting House, where we are, was built in 1772. It burned, and in 1778, 1779, it was replaced with the brick building that we are in today. Quaker tradition would be of plainness. And within a Quaker meeting house, there would be no pictures, certainly no crosses, no statuary, no stained glass, the things that we normally associate with a religious institution. The exception for Quaker is this image. This was a promotional from the 18th century in England, and it was published in newspapers. And it was the ship company boasting on how efficiently they could pack slaves to transport them from Africa to the New World. And they were double-deckered, so it isn't just one layer, you would have multiple layers of it. And if a individual died, you simply throw them off the ship and continue on your way. And they boasted with the efficiency rate of this. Quakers were horrified.
Robber or the prairie stops and calls the land his own, and they who talk as slavery talk so free to talk alone. So tell the knaves we are not slaves, and slaves will never be. Come wheel or woe, the world shall know we're free, we're free, we're free.
Oh, watcher on the outer wall, how wears the night away? I hear the birds of morning call, I see the break of day.
So tell the knaves we are not slaves, and slaves will never be. Come wheel or woe, the world shall know we're free, we're free, we're free. The hands that hold the sword and purse their long shall lose their prey, and they who blindly wrought the curse shall sweep away. So tell the knaves we are not slaves, and slaves will